Welcome to the next tutorial. This video's topic is mainly about the accent in ancient Greek. By accent, we aren't talking about how other people in a specific area spoke the language, but rather how they pronounced certain letters differently. In English, there is a stress accent with the differentiation coming from stressed and unstressed syllables. For example, content is different from content. The ancient Greek accent contrasts with this, being a pitch accent. Some modern languages with pitch accents are Chinese and Vietnamese. Since English speakers generally have a very hard time with a pitch accent, we usually ignore the distinctions in pitch to pronounce all ancient Greek accents with a stress accent. Even though we don't often distinguish between the accents in our speech, it is necessary to write each accent. Let's learn how. There are three accents in ancient Greek: acute, grave, and circumflex. The first accent is the acute accent. In ancient pronunciation, the acute accent would have sounded like a rise in pitch, the grave accent like a less pronounced rise in pitch, though this is still debated, and a circumflex would have sounded like a rise to the acute and back down to the normal level. However, we today usually pronounce these as stressed syllables. Let's get into the rules governing accents. For one, a word can usually have only one accented syllable, and that accent is always written over the syllable's vowel. A word can only be accented on its last three syllables. These are called the antepenult, the penult, and the ultima. An accent can only be placed on the antepenult if the final syllable is short. Additionally, only an acute accent can be placed on the antepenult. For the penult, an acute accent or circumflex can be placed on it. In most cases, the accent will be acute, but if the penultimate syllable is long and the final syllable is short, the accent will be a circumflex. Finally, we have the ultima. If the final syllable is short, use an acute accent. If the final syllable is long and the vowel is a noun with a nominative, accusative, or vocative case, the accent is still acute. If the final syllable is long and the case isn't one of these, the accent is a circumflex. Now you might be wondering, where's the grave accent? Well, whenever another word follows an accent on the ultima that would otherwise be acute, that accent becomes grave. I just mentioned cases. What are they? I won't go too much into them, but since I mentioned them earlier, I will give a brief explanation. Each noun has a case, which is an aspect of the noun showing what it means in the sentence. There are 5 cases: nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, and vocative. These each have their own meanings, but let's use an English example for nominative and accusative. He hit me. In this sentence, he would be nominative, since it's the subject, and me would be accusative, since it's the direct object, or who is getting hit. For now, just know that nominative, accusative, and vocative nouns, whether they have a long or short vowel, have an acute or grave accent if they have an accent on the ultima. Words can have 2 types of accent: recessive and persistent. Verbs use recessive accents, which are very nice and easy to remember. Recessive accents want to be as early in the word as possible. In practice, this means that a finite verb, a verb like he eats, not to eat, with a short final syllable will have an accent on the antepenult, while a finite verb with a long final syllable will have an acute accent over the penult. Nouns, adjectives, and other kinds of words have persistent accents, which are harder. These accents want to stay in one position, which you have to memorize individually for each word. They will stay in that position, switching accent types if they need to in order to stay there. If a word with a persistent accent on the antepenult gains a long final syllable, the accent will move to the penult, since it can't stay on the antepenult. Just know that you should memorize where accents go as you learn words that aren't verbs. Just a bit more about accents. When they are put over a diphthong, they go over the last vowel in the diphthong. Vowels with an iota subscript have an accent over the vowel, just as usual. Also, when a vowel at the beginning of the word is capitalized, the breathing mark and accent go to its left. Since we're talking about writing ancient Greek, it makes sense to include the rules of punctuation. First, one interesting thing about ancient Greek punctuation is that it often wasn't written with punctuation or even spaces. Indeed, it was much harder, if not impossible, to read anything silently. However, most Greek you read will have punctuation, and we will discuss it here. Periods, ending sentences, are the same in both English and Ancient Greek. Commas are the same between them as well. The English colon and semicolon share one Greek equivalent, the raised dot. In Greek, questions are represented with a symbol identical to the English semicolon. Finally, there are no quotation marks in Ancient Greek. Instead, capitalization fills this role. While we did touch on capitalization last video, we will cover it again. Originally, text didn't have capital or lowercase letters. Those are a more modern distinction. However, we will mention how they work. Capitals are used for proper nouns, as in English. Sentences normally don't start with capital letters, unlike many languages today. Quotes begin with a capital letter, but there is no indication as to when a quote ends. You will need to use common sense to figure out when the quotes end. That's the end of the new content for this lesson. Now, let's practice. The first round of exercises will deal with accent rules. Each of these words are nouns or adjectives which have their accent location marked. Choose which accent to use. This is strategos, meaning general. It is nominative here. Because the accent is on the ultima and the word is nominative, we should use an acute accent. What would the accent for te be? This is the dative singular form of the word for the. It would be a circumflex, since it is on a long syllable and not nominative, accusative, or vocative. Trai kritain sophon, meaning the wise judge. This is accusative here. The accent seems like it would be acute at first, since it is the ultima of an accusative noun. However, because I specified that there was another word after it, the accent is actually grave. How about kerukes? It's nominative. What should the accent be? It should be acute, since the accent is on the antepenult. Acute is the only option for that accent. Great job! Now, even more practice. All of these words are finite verbs, meaning that they have a recessive accent. What should the accent be, and where should it go? Try accenting this. It should be luo, with an acute accent on the penult. What is this accent? The word should be accented thulato, with an acute accent on the penult. Try this one out. Strateuete should have an accent on the antepenult. Congratulations for completing the lesson. You should be able to handle the accents for most situations in Ancient Greek, and should have a better grasp on capitals and punctuation. I hope this video was useful to you. In the next video, we will study present tense verbs.